Please give a round of applause to the Sebring High School Show Choir for a beautiful performance. Please welcome our secretary, Lisa Martin.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you've all heard in words is what has happened on such a tragic day for the United States, we would like to show some video footage of the events that took place in New York City around the nation.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center.
I just witnessed a plane that appeared to be cruising slightly lower than normal altitude over New York City, and it appears to have crashed into, I don't know which tower it is, but it hit directly in the middle of one of the World Trade Center towers. The plane just was coming in low, and the wingtips tilted back and forth, and then it flattened out. It looks like it's hit at a slight angle into the World Trade Center. I can see flames now coming out the side of the building, and smoke continues to billow.
I said the hose takes about, looks like 6, 7 floors were taken out. And there's more explosions right now. Hold on, people are running.
Hold on just a moment. We got an explosion inside.
The building's exploding right now. You got people running up the street.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, what's going on.
Okay, just put Winston on pause there for just a moment.
Okay, the whole building just exploded some more. The whole top part.
Okay.
The building's still intact. People are running up the street.
You are looking at this picture. It is the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, both of them being damaged by impacts from planes. We saw one happen at about maybe 9 minutes before the top of the hour, and just moments ago, so maybe 18 minutes after the first impact, the second tower was impacted by another, what appeared to be another passenger plane.
That's absolutely inexplicable. There shouldn't be any aircraft in that area, much less something heading what looked like deliberately for the World Trade Center tower.
We went to High Point on building, which is on the 25th floor, and you had a clear view of the both World Trade Centers, and the one tower was smoking hot. And there was another plane that was flying low, and we just looked at it, and before you know it, just kamikaze boom right into the other tower. And mass explosion, windows flying. It was horrible.
We heard a big bang, and then we saw smoke coming out, and everybody started running out, and we saw the plane on the other side of the building, and there was smoke everywhere. People are jumping out the windows. Over there, they're jumping out the windows, I guess, because they're trying to save themselves. I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry, my dear.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act.
We also have a report now that it was a plane that crashed into the Pentagon, and we have a large fire at the Pentagon. The Pentagon is being evacuated as we speak.
There is a lot of confusion here at the Pentagon. It appears that something hit the Pentagon on the outside of the 5th corridor. on the Army Corps. Several Army officers I talked to reported hearing a big explosion, seeing shards of metal coming past their window. The Pentagon has been evacuated. Emergency services personnel were rushing to reports of several people trapped in the building. Most of the building's 24,000 people are outside of the building or in the center courtyard as the emergency teams try to sort out what has happened here.
There has just been a huge explosion. We can see a billowing smoke rising, and I'll tell you that I can't see that second tower, but there was a cascade of sparks and fire, and now it looks almost like a mushroom cloud explosion, this huge billowing smoke in the second tower. This was the second of the two towers hit, and I cannot see behind that smoke, but just look at that. That is about as frightening a scene as you will ever see.
Just before 10 o'clock, parts of the building began peeling away. People started screaming. The police began yelling, "Run, run!" And thousands of people started running away from the buildings as they were falling.
There, as you can see, perhaps the second tower, the front tower, the top portion of which is collapsing. Good Lord. There are no words.
Right now, there's a thick plume of smoke, and you can see crowds of people, including emergency service workers and police officers, running from the scene, screaming. And there's a school nearby where there were kids in the schoolyard. That has been emptied out, and they're running up the street now too. The whole sort of the neighborhood, I think, several blocks up, is covered by this almost powdery smoke. Little tiny pieces of building you can see just floating in the wind around it. It's almost like a huge cloud had kind of enveloped that part of lower Manhattan.
You saw people being wheeled on gurneys away from the site of the explosion. People were coming out with masks over their face, anything they could put over their face, because the air was still very thick with debris.
We have a report now that a large plane crashed this morning north of the Somerset County Airport, which is in western Pennsylvania, not too terribly far from Pittsburgh. We don't know if this is somehow connected to what has gone on in New York and Washington, but we do know that another plane has crashed, this one about 80 miles south of Pittsburgh, or at least to the southeast of Pittsburgh.
Everyone, I'm sure, on their minds is God rest the souls of those who've lost their lives this morning in New York, in Washington, near Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania. It is just a story for which there are no words to describe.
I hope by watching some of this footage that it gives a glimpse of the terror that took place in our nation. Now please welcome the President of the Young Americans for Freedom, Caleb Cooper.
First off, I would like to thank everyone for attending this ceremony to honor the lives that were lost on 9/11. Today we are gathered here to remember a morning that started out like this one. Americans getting ready to start their day, children being dropped off at school, and businesses opening up their doors. It was the start of a beautiful day around the country. But in the blink of an eye, America and the world changed forever. America was under attack. At 8:46 a.m., the first plane hit the North Tower of the World Trade Centers. Many people thought this was just an accident. And they soon realized it wasn't. Around 9:03 a.m., a second plane crashed into the South Tower, and we knew this was an attack. First responders and people rushed to help out in any way they could to evacuate the towers and save as many as they could. Later at 9:37 a.m., the west side of the Pentagon, Washington, D.C., was hit with a plane. But there was a fourth that crashed in an open field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. This plane was believed to be headed to the White House or the U.S. Capitol, but was averted because of the heroes on United Airlines Flight 93. They alerted the attacks, and their plane was hijacked later on. They began to start calling their loved ones for the last time. Then they formed a plan and fought back with bravery and courage against those who wished to do evil. Then Flight 93 went down and crashed. The men and women of Flight 93 will forever be remembered as heroes for averting a fourth attempt to crash a plane on 9/11. On that day, 2,977 innocent lives, people from all walks of life, races, nationalities, and backgrounds, were lost in that terrible and tragic event. That day, we all changed. Our eyes were open to the evil that wanted to terrorize us. But in that hour of darkness, we all came together. Our differences disappeared, our common bonds grew stronger. As President Abraham Lincoln said it, Americans will never be destroyed from the outside. Even though 9/11 was a tragic day, it shows us the best we can be as one people and to stand united to preserve, protect, and defend our nation from every evil force that wishes to do harm. That day, every American put aside their differences to unite and come together to get through a tragic and horrendous day in our history. That day was an act of madness, and it shows the very worst of evil. The terrorists who committed this act of violence thought they could bring the United States to its knees. But Americans rose in times of darkness as one united people to look evil deep into its eyes and say that we will never surrender. We raised the Stars and Stripes in New York and Washington, D.C. to show that we will never fall, but we will fight to protect the freedoms, liberties, and the rights of every citizen, and that we will not stop or rest until we found those who were responsible. President George W. Bush went to Ground Zero on September 14, 2001, in which he attempted to speak, but a man from the crowd said, "We can't hear you." President Bush responded with, "I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knocked down those buildings down will hear all of us soon." That is why our military stands ready on behalf of all Americans to defend our nation against terrorists. Every family grieved for the loved ones that were lost that day. It is important that we never forget their lives and what happened on that day, and that we never forget the ones who gave their lives serving to protect their nation and the American people. We will never forget 9/11 and those who lost their lives. Now it is my privilege to introduce Mr. Matthew Saboto, who is in New York City with a personal account of the tragedies that took place on 9/11.
Alright, let's see if I can get through this. Whew. Haven't seen that image in a while, so a little tough. But 18 years ago, I was going to work like any morning. But first, let me stop and say thank you to Young Americans for Freedom, Ms. Beato for doing this, showing you guys what happened that day. Most of you guys weren't born, so it's a distant thing to you, it's foreign to you, you haven't really seen it or really know about it. So it's great that you guys, not great, but it's nice that you guys got to see it. Just to have a picture in your head of what went on that day and what America went through. So about 18 years ago, I went to work like any other day. I was doing a deck on a penthouse apartment in Manhattan. I was about 4.5 blocks. So I was about 4.5 blocks away from the Trade Towers, and me and my crew, we had just finished busting up the old deck, and in Manhattan we can't really have dumpsters on the street, so we had a truck coming in that day to pick up all the debris from the old deck so we could start the new deck. So as I go down the service elevator with a couple bags of debris, waiting for the truck, I look out to the corner and I see a group of people just standing there, staring up. And now, yes, in Manhattan there's a lot of tourists and there's a lot of people pointing and looking, but this was just something different. Never really seen 50 people in this part of town just staring up and looking. So I walked over there to see what happened, and no one could really talk. They just pointed up, and as I followed their fingers and I saw the smoke coming out of the North Tower, the first tower. I was like, man, what happened? And then finally someone said, we think a plane crashed into it. Shortly thereafter, we got to see and witness the second plane come around and hit the second tower. Words couldn't describe what I was thinking or what I was going through, plus everybody else there, what they were thinking. But I knew something was going on. Something was wrong. 2 planes don't just crash into the towers. So I kind of went back upstairs. This time I took the regular elevators, and they had TV monitors in that elevator, and going up they had the news on, and I got to see what was going on, which gave me more just a realization of what was going on. I had 2 people working with me, Nick and Laszlo, and my friend Matt had come in just to help out and make some extra money that day. I said, look, 2 planes just hit the towers. I don't know what's going on, but I know we need to get out of here. So as we're packing up and getting things stored away so that we didn't leave the guy's house a mess, we walked downstairs. I sent Nick and Laszlo home. Me and my friend Matt, seeing that we were so close, we said, let's get closer and see if there's anything that we can do. I don't know what we're going to be able to do, but let's see if we can help out in any way. As we're coming up, it had taken us a little while to pack up, but that's when the second tower started coming down. And on the way there, you heard the stories of people. Just the sights that we saw that day and witnessed that day is just horrific. The things that people have to resort to doing to try to save themselves is just horrifying. The thing I remember most about that day is that it was quiet. There was no sound. Like you would think with buildings coming down, fire trucks racing, police cars racing, that there'd be noise everywhere. And I was probably shocked, but it was just silent, like dead silent that whole day. I could hear my friend Matt talking, but it was just silent. And as that building came down, we knew there was nothing we could do. Smoke and debris just filled the streets. We were covered. So we said, we can't do anything. We started walking away from the scene. So it's just a terrible day. As we're walking back up, cell phone towers are down, so we can't call anybody. Payphones weren't really working. We had gotten to Penn Station to see if we could catch a train home, but they had closed all the trains, all the bridges, everything was closed off. Manhattan was sealed off, and we were stuck on Manhattan Island. So one of my favorite favorite places to go was Central Park. So I said, Matt, let's just walk up to Central Park and just kind of take it easy and just talk. And that's what we did. We found a nice little place to talk, and we just kind of said a prayer for the people that were going through this horrible event. And we just sat there and just talked. And then finally, we heard news that Penn Station has opened up, so we walked there. I took the train home, got home to my apartment, and my 2 roommates heard the door open, and they came running down because they knew I worked in Manhattan, and they didn't know where I was that day. So they were relieved and happy to see that I had come home. And finally, the next morning, got to call my family and let them know that I was okay, because again, they lived down here in Florida, and they had no idea, because again, when I was doing construction, I was all over Manhattan, so they didn't know where I was that day. My wife now, I was dating her at the time, she's in the back. Same thing too, she was really nervous, not knowing what was going on that day. But I'm glad that I'm here, I'm glad that I could share this with you. I'm thankful for the Young Americans for Freedom for giving you guys like a little glimpse of what this day really means. Because it did impact us a lot. And for, like I said, most of you guys, you don't really know or really have maybe felt it. But it's a tremendous day for me. As you can see, I still get emotional. But the thing that this day really shows me is just how exceptional America is. Caleb made some really good points on the bravery of Americans, on the strength and resolve that we have, that we can come together and be one. And that's what I remember too over the next few days and next few months and the years following being in New York, is that everyone had just come together in a way like no other. Just being there for each other, supporting each other, financially, emotionally, just being there. And it was great because you could be in Manhattan and be surrounded by people and still feel really alone. No one really talks. You could be in a crowd of people standing next to someone waiting to cross at a light, and you would never say hi to them. You could live across the street from, or across the apartment from one, and never really talk to anyone. But after this event, everyone just came together, and people on the street would just talk, and it was amazing to see that. And I think that just shows what Americans were made to be, and that's what we were founded on. We were founded on these moral responsibilities to take care of each other, to look out for each other. And America kind of took on the role as a big brother, or that friend in the courtyard that sees a bully and goes up to that bully and says, hey, I don't like what you're doing. You need to stop. And I think that's why we were attacked that day. Because of our beliefs, because of our freedoms, because of the rights that we have. Other countries see that as a threat. Their people want that. We want to help their people get that, and they dislike us very much for that. So it just shows again the exceptionalism of the Americans to go out and stand in the face of adversity, stand in the face of oppressors and say, we're not going to let you do this anymore, and we're going to help out. And as we came together that day, as you guys came together to show these young individuals what that day meant, just means a tremendous amount. This day will be a day that lives on and on, as long as people like you guys tell and teach other people about that day, and to show that love that Americans have for each other and for the world. I just wanted to give a brief little speech, so I want to thank you guys. Thank you, Ms. Beato, for the opportunity to share that day and that event, and hopefully you guys have a little bit better understanding about it, because I know over the past couple of days, as I was building the towers, I had students that thought it would be funny to throw a paper airplane into it, and that really upset me. But you guys didn't know, and you don't know. But now maybe you've seen this, and you do know, and you have that that passion for America, to know that, man, that's not a funny thing to make fun of. And for some of you guys that might gripe at Americans or the America rules and constitutions and things like that, this is a great country. There's no other country like this country. And the way we stand up for people and the way we help each other out, there's not another place I'd want to live. And I'm glad that you guys are spreading the word of what America should be and what America is. So thank you guys for that. Thank you.
Wow. I'd like to thank Mr. Spoto for telling his first-hand view of the, it's very emotional, the first-hand attacks on this country. So this concludes the ceremony. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony to honor those who were lost on September 11, 2001. God bless those who lost their loved ones, and God bless you, and God bless these great United States of America. Thank you, everybody.
That was amazing. It was an amazing program. I can't tell you how proud I am of you for putting this together and for your club putting this together. It's very important that none of us forget what happened on 9/11 in 2001. And thank you for bringing us together to remember it on the 18th anniversary. Teachers, at this time, we are going to allow you to take your classes back to your classrooms. So if we can just start in the back, and if you will release one class at a time.